The next panel, my colleagues, Ariane Palanques from the Environment Accessibility Department of Fundación 11, and Natalie González Villarini from the Accessible Technology Department of Fundación 11 will present a panel on raising awareness through Accessibilitech projects, outputs and results.
So, hi, good afternoon. Once that we have been hearing during all day the situation of accessibility in technologies and that different statements that were the origin of this project were presented, we are going to do a little review of the project, which were the beginnings of the project, the main goals, and how we have been working on them with different activities and the results that we have obtained. So as we have been hearing during all the presentations and the different panels, we found that there's a gap in the ICT sector, that many times we can't get an accessible technology situation in many areas, but after the COVID pandemic, we found that telework, telecare, and e-learning were the main areas where accessibility technology, where the accessibility in technology was not real. So the first goals that the Accessibilitech project was working in were, first of all, to make an active listening tool that was able to find the actual accessible technologies that were in Europe. Because many times we found that it's very difficult to get the information of those solutions that are already accessible. As many panelists told before, it's not only necessary to make accessible technology, but also to be able to communicate it and make it affordable and available to everyone. So we needed to work in making, in updating and reviewing all the existing technologies and making an active listening tool able to look for these solutions. Also, we also wanted to map and analyze these innovative experiences to make sure that these solutions that were already being provided could be scalable, transferable, and could be also replied by other companies and other solutions. Also, as accessibility sometimes is not well communicated, or when it's communicated, it's not as accurate as it should be. We also wanted to define, test, and validate a methodology to be able to try if these solutions were already accessible. And also another gap that was told before is the gap that is between the different stakeholders that work in technology sector, not also the providers, but also the legislative institutions, the consumers, and all the parts. So we also thought that it was important to institutionalize this cooperation between partners and stakeholders. Then other of the main goals was to validate and transfer the methodology that we were using to test this accessibility. And also it was very important to fill this gap that we have been all the time talking about, that is communication and dissemination. So also another important part of the project was to disseminate information and knowledge about the most effective solutions. and also to provide guidance on inclusive and accessible technology to the sector, to provide them with the tools to be able to develop accessible technology. So yeah, to do so, to get these goals, we have been working in the project in these different activities. We have worked in a web page, like the main resource to put all this content that we have been developing. And we will use this web page to navigate to some of these outputs that we have been getting in the project. Also, one of these main activities was the mapping tool to find the solutions that are being developing, and also the methodology and beta testing to see how is the state of accessibility in these solutions, and also to provide all these knowledge hub ecosystem and this dissemination of contents. We have also provided workshops and organized a hackathon. And in the webpage, there's also a toolkit and a repository available to provide information and resources. So, well, in the mapping tool, what we wanted was to set up an European technology surveillance team specialized in identifying, analyzing, and disseminating accessible technologies with the capacity to detect those that could potentially be scalable, replicable, or transferable at EU level. We also wanted to establish a listening tool combining electronic and human capacities to systematically capture and analyze data gathered from internet about accessible technologies developed for telework, e-learning, and telecare. Upgrading the existing identification method to map inclusive and accessible technology and solutions. After that, well, to do so, we developed an algorithm that could find automatically the existing projects and developments that were being provided in Europe with accessibility at different levels, but at some point there was accessibility being taken into account. So the first stage, well, I'm going to visit the mapping tool so you can see the actual mapping tool that you can visit in the webpage of Accessibilitech. I'm trying to navigate in a webpage and I think that it's not working. Well, maybe. Well, yeah, now I think that. No, yeah, thank you. So this is the mapping tool that we have developed, and you can look for it in the Accessibilitech webpage. And what this mapping tool shows is the different solutions that have been found by this automatic algorithm that I was telling you before, and also by the manual introduction of projects. Because we have encouraged to developers and to the people that have different accessibility solutions to introduce their information, but also the automatic algorithm that is built to be able to find these accessible solutions regarding to some requirements. They were all, once they were identified, more than 50,000 projects were initially identified. After that, we made a selection of those, taking into account some other criteria, as it was the type of disability the product is targeted, as we looked for those that were that taking into account a broader range of profiles. The second criteria was to the relevance of the accessibility's focus area that, as you know, are telework, e-learning, and telecare. Also, if this solution is a technological product or service, as we were focused on technology. also the maturity level of the project, and finally the accessibility, scalability, and transferability. So in this platform, we can search by country and by the area we're interested in, which are the projects that the algorithm and the manual the manual form have been detected. So we can enter in all the projects that are found by the mapping tool, and we can get some information about, general information about the project, the companies or the entities that have worked in that solution, and the countries that have worked in. And we can also visit the web page and contact with the developers of the solution. So, okay. Once we had already built this mapping tool and the algorithm, we, after that, built a methodology and beta testing to make sure that the solutions that were found by the algorithm were meeting the criteria that we have established, and also to be able to get only one solution per area, and to try to check if these 3 solutions that we have already get were accessible. Only to get, when we had all those 50,000 projects and we used the criteria to get only 300 per area, 300 in total, but 100 per area, we use the criteria and we get 10 solutions per area. And after that, we send a questionnaire to all the partners and associates to get only 1 project per area. So after that, we make a beta testing to check if the solutions, the 3 selected solutions that were access jobs for e-learning, Microsoft Teams for telework, and Visual 5 Places for telecare. And we made an accessibility test of these 3 solutions to check if all the process that we have been developing to see the accessibility was correct, and all these solutions, these 3 solutions already get a good level of accessibility. So, we encourage you to visit the mapping tool, and also to encourage other people, if you know that they are developing or they have already accessible and available solutions, to put the information in the mapping tool. After that, we have also been working in the dissemination and providing information for the different stakeholders of the project. We have developed 3 workshops in 2022 on the 3 main areas of the project: telecare, telework, and e-learning, which reached almost 300 participants, and they are also available in YouTube, so you can still watch them. And also we organized a hackathon where 25 participants were participating in this hackathon. We also threw 3 challenges, 1 per area. And we had the challenges that were designed taking into account the main gaps that we have found in technology at the moment. Most of them from the conference platforms. So, for example, in telework, the challenge was to propose a component for video conferencing platforms that solves the interaction problems for people with speech disabilities, because now it's not very considered, this problem. So the winner of this challenge was a Speech Power Up. The solution of this challenge was an add-on module to Microsoft Teams for users with speech fluency disorders to overcome the barriers to an interruption-free and misinterpretation-free telework session. In the telecare challenge was proposed a telemedicine telehealth platform in addition to being accessible to allow users to enter health data generated at home, provide test results that are easy to understand and interpret, and video conferencing tools that include captioning as well as caption calls with health providers. And the winner of this challenge was Accessible Platform for Telecare. And this was a platform that enabled accessible features for motor impairment, prioritizing tapping over scrolling and big tapping areas. Also for visual impairment, high contrast text enlargement and accessible fonts. And for cognitive impairment, predictable layout and navigation, clear explanations, captions for audio, and avoiding many elements on the screen. And finally, in the learning challenge, was proposed a video conferencing tool that people with limited comprehension skills can access and use with minimal or no assistance. And the winner was Simplify, which was a Google Chrome plugin for Microsoft Teams that includes artificial intelligence-based meeting accessibility awareness checker, gesture-based controls during meeting, complex word detection and correction, inclusion summary after the meeting, and it was using an API in Microsoft Computer Vision Services. And finally, we have also worked on a toolkit and a repository that is also available in the Accessibilitech webpage. That we have been working in these different handbooks about the most common needs of people with disabilities. Well, we think that the most important thing that Accessibilitech has achieved is the conversation and the communication between the different stakeholders. So we think that it's very important, first of all, that the providers and the developers and all the sector knows the needs of people with disabilities. And after that, also how to improve the accessibility in the organizations and also more technical knowledge to develop this accessibility. So the other handbooks that can be found at the webpage are also improving accessibility in digital documents, organizing accessible events, the most common accessible mistakes, improving accessibility in audiovisual materials, and accessibility features in mobile devices. These are only some introductory materials, but in the webpage you can find links to other resources and to other contents. And after that, my colleague Natalie is going to talk about the results that we have been getting along these all activities in the project.
Hi. Before I begin, please know that I'm deaf, and speaking in English can be challenging for me. So if I say anything that you don't understand, please let me know, and I'll repeat. Okay. Thank you. Well, I'm going to summarize some of the most important results of the mapping tool, and also the finding of a questionnaire that we sent to a few of the developers who designed and created some of the solutions we reviewed as a part of the project. As Marian explained, the mapping tool has identified over 50,000 solutions. We observed that many of those solutions didn't include accessibility features. In fact, we could only validate 480 solutions for analysis. And also of the project that we identified that did include accessibility features, many didn't offer enough information about them. We found that sometimes accessibility features were poorly explained, or that the information was incomplete. If someone with a disability wanted to acquire some of this product, they would have a hard time finding out it is suitable to the need. Sometimes it wasn't even clear to whom the product or service was targeted to. It was actually that bad. So after obtaining those results, we wanted to know a bit more about the opinion of some of the developers and other stakeholders about accessibility. So we sent them a very simple survey. First thing we asked was if finding information about accessible solutions or services was easy. 60% said that it was. but 32% didn't think it was easy, and 8% didn't know about it because they didn't try looking for accessible solutions. We also asked how familiar they were with the concept of accessibility, and 96% say they were very familiar, but 4% say they weren't. We told them to explain to us what accessibility meant for them, and it was funny because a lot of those people actually copied and pasted the definition of accessibility in the questionnaire. So we can't really tell if they really know about accessibility. So we also asked them if accessibility was part of the project they're working or of their job position. 80% claimed that it was, and 20% said that partially. Also, 52% say they received training in accessibility, and 48% say they didn't. Of those people, of the people who said who received training, 25% said that they received it on the needs of users, which is interesting because some of the things that I have been observing throughout my career is that many developers don't really know about the needs of users or how people use technology. Well, 20% say they received training in European policies, and the rest said they had training in web accessibility, accessible documents, how to develop accessible apps and interfaces. So when we asked about the knowledge or compliance with the European standard EN 301-549, accessibility for ICT products and services, 43% say they didn't know about it. 32% say they knew about it, but only 11% fully comply with the standard. We are asked the same question about the European accessibility apps, and 41% say they didn't know about it, while 35% say they did know about it, but only 10% comply with the law. However, when we asked about the WCAG, 40% say they knew about it, but also only 10% fully complied with the WCAG. Reasons for not knowing or compliant with the standards and law. 52% say they need training, understanding the law. In fact, it is something that we have been observing, that some standards aren't easy to understand or to interpret. People don't know how to apply it. In fact, 19% say that the standards aren't easy to understand. 14% said it is difficult to obtain information about the standard. And 10% claim that it's not easy to apply it. Also, related materials that are available about the standards are hard to understand for those people, for the respondents. We also asked if they include self-declaration or third-party accessibility certificates in their product. And 68% of the developers we interviewed said that they didn't include a self-declaration of accessibility or nor a third-party certificate in the product. We got to prove what we said before, that it was hard to find information about accessibility in the products we analyzed. So, however, 64% of people who answered the questionnaire, they claim to follow a user-centered design when developing their product. 36% say they didn't. And 80% said they included people with disabilities in the testing process. Well, We have concluded that more effort needs to be done to get those responsible for designing technologies to comply with European standards and laws regarding accessibility. I think it will be very good to create an official guideline on how to apply the standards, because it seems to be that many people have trouble understanding it and applying it. It's also imperative to keep educating and better about the needs of users and to dismantle myths about the high cost of making things accessible. There are many people that think that adding closed captioning to an event is very expensive, and it really isn't. It can be quite affordable. Particularly if you have an online event, you can use automatic captioning that is available in many platforms. We also need to create better strategies to encourage companies to include people with disabilities in the development process, not only as potential users, but also as possible investors. I am aware that poverty is an issue among the community of people with disability, but it's also true that we are increasingly obtaining more purchasing power. I think some people with disability can actually invest in a product or something to make it better. They can provide their point of view and their experience in making the product. I have worked with Samsung and other companies in making mobile devices better for people with hearing disabilities, for example. We also need to encourage developers to think of people with disabilities when drafting instruction and the user guides and information about the product. They need to be accessible too, and we need to think more of cognitive accessibility when making instruction and making products. Well, thank you very much. I hope I didn't bore you.
Thank you, Marianne and Natalie.
Do you have any question for me or Marianne?
Please.
So, thank you. This is Susanna Lorin from Funka. I had a question, actually two questions. One is, if 80% of the organizations you asked claim that they do include people with disabilities in their testing, I think that is an extremely positive result, and that doesn't resonate with any other research I have ever heard about. So I wonder, how did you pick the organizations that you sent the survey to? Because this seems to be organizations that are already very much involved in disability issues or know about accessibility. And my other question is about your survey question about complying with the Accessibility Act. How could they possibly do that when we don't have the standards in place that shows the presumed conformance of the Accessibility Act? I mean, that is an impossible question to answer to, because nobody knows what the standards will be like, because they are not developed yet.
Well, I don't know. We sent out the questionnaire to the developers of products we analyzed. There were people who were actually working to make something more accessible. So that's why they claim to have tested the product with people with disabilities. And regarding the second question, it is true that many of them didn't know about the European standard, but they didn't know about the weight cut. I don't know which one they used for the knowledge in accessibility. I cannot answer you that question.
Hi, Ima Placencia from the European Commission. I I have one question. Maybe you said it and I missed it, but could you tell us how many companies did you send the questionnaire to and how many responded? And then I have a comment to the question of Suzanne, of course, about the Accessibility Act, because the companies can know, because the Act contains, as you very well know, an annex with accessibility requirements which are pretty detailed. They are comparable to the US Section 508 level of detail in many of the areas. So let's hope that they have read the annex, they have examples, and that they comply at least with those requirements. Nevertheless, insisting standards are just volunteer, and what it will be checked is the compliance with the accessibility requirements. That's what it is compulsory. So I just want to use this opportunity to alert that it's not yet compulsory. 2025 will arrive soon, but the annex provides a lot of guidance. Sorry, and I put the question to you. I should listen to you, to your answer.
Okay. I don't have the data with me how many people replied to the questionnaire, but it wasn't a large sample.
Sorry about that. Actually, we decided to make a sample, and we select 8 or 9 companies that we realize they are quite close to accessibility, let's say like 1900% accessible, and then the ones we consider they partially compliant with accessibility, and then 5 or 6, I don't remember well, we know they don't comply at all. So because we wanted to have a clear picture, we didn't want to send the survey to many people. We just a select group to know what's the perception and why they didn't comply, or what do they need, or why they didn't understand. So it was a sample. It was not a massive survey. It was just a selection of
Any other question? So I think that we have already finished.
Thank you, Natalia.